Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today, we're taking a look at Webull Corporation. It's one of the newer names really stirring up some serious momentum, following their IPO in 2025. The big question we're tackling, based on everything we've seen, is pretty simple. Is now actually a good time to buy Webull stock? Before we get into the financials and the charts, please take just a second to subscribe, like this segment, and drop a comment below. Seriously, if there's a specific company you want us to look into, maybe something you're tracking or just confused about, let us know in the comments. We'll try to prioritize it.
Right. And our mission today is, it's to give you the full picture. We're pulling together Webull's Q2 2025 financials, looking at its technical position after the IPO, and really zeroing in on those catalysts that could, make or break the stock. Since they're so new to the public market, the real goal is to see if this high momentum justifies the, frankly, elevated risk.
Okay, let's start where we always should, the fundamentals. Let's dig into these Q2 numbers, because that growth trajectory, it's undeniably steep. Total revenue for Q2 2025, it hit $131.5 million. That's a pretty aggressive 46% jump year over year.
And it's not just overall growth, it's like focused growth. You have to look at what's driving it. The main engine, trading-related revenue, that grew even faster, up 63% compared to last year.
Wow.
Yeah, that tells you the retail trading wave is definitely working for them. And customers are clearly buying in. Customer assets, up 64% year over year, an all-time high. And that's driven by strong net deposits. That's a good sign, shows trust and platform stickiness.
Okay, so revenue up almost 50%, customer assets over 60%. They must be making a ton of money then, right? But this kind of brings us to that financial paradox with Webull.
Precisely. This is like the first really critical tension point for any potential investor. Growth is great, yes, but operating expenses also jumped 37% year over year. That's $121.1 million. And a big chunk of that increase, about $18.5 million, was share-based compensation, which, is normal after an IPO, but it does dilute existing shareholders.
And the bottom line, if you use standard accounting, the GAAP numbers still showed a loss, a significant one.
It did. The loss before income taxes for Q2 was $21.4 million. Now, that's quite a bit higher than the $10.3 million loss they had in the same quarter last year. But it's important to note about $11 million of that jump was tied to one-off costs from the IPO itself, equity offering costs.
Oh, okay.
But here's the key thing. The insight management really wants you focused on, despite that GAAP loss, their adjusted operating profit, $23.3 million for the quarter. That's a huge turnaround from an adjusted operating loss of about $0.3 million the year before. So by their preferred metrics, they made money. Adjusted operating EPS for Q2 was 5 cents.
That really is the core decision point, isn't it, for investors? You have to decide, basically, if you trust that adjusted profitability story over the standard GAAP loss. And as a young company, is relying on those non-GAAP figures. Is that itself a bit of a red flag that maybe suggests they haven't quite nailed down cost control yet?
That's exactly the right question. I mean, the bull case says, look, those GAAP losses are temporary, they're tied to growth spending, IPO costs, and the adjusted profit proves the core business is sound and scaling fast. But the bear case, naturally, highlights that adjusted numbers are, designed to look good. It demands a healthy dose of skepticism.
Okay, let's talk about who's actually running the show here. The share count is big, over 378 million shares outstanding. But you mentioned control is concentrated.
Yeah, the ownership structure really matters, especially for governance and liquidity. The two biggest holders, Jun Yuan and Anquan Wang, they control about 26.6% together. Now, on one hand, that kind of insider ownership can mean stability, clear direction, which is good for moving fast.
Right. But concentrated control.
Right.
That brings risks too, doesn't it? Serious ones.
Absolutely. When, more than a quarter of the company is in just two pairs of hands, it shrinks the available shares for the public, makes the stock potentially more volatile, and crucially, governance risks pop up. Minority shareholders, potentially you listening, have less say. There's a higher chance of conflicts of interest down the line. It's a key thing to weigh for the long term.
Okay, moving on to the wider picture.
Yeah.
Where does Webull fit in? I mean, they're fighting in a really tough space. Fintech, cutthroat commissions. They're up against giants like Robinhood, Schwab, Fidelity.
Yeah, the competition is fierce, no doubt. But Webull argues they have some key advantages, strategic differentiators, they call them. First, rapid product innovation. They're always rolling out new stuff. Second, that aggressive global expansion push, trying to get scale. And third, managing what they phrase as a discernible regulatory environment, which is basically corporate speak for trying to navigate tricky regulations while keeping their business model intact.
Their strategy really seems to be about becoming that all-in-one platform, right?
Mm.
And they're catching a nice tailwind, this growing demand for integrated trading tools.
Exactly. I mean, today's retail traders, they don't want to juggle multiple apps, a stock app here, a crypto wallet there, another platform for options. Weeble's positioned to grab that demand, seamlessly offer stocks, options, and critically, that crypto trading they just relaunched. All in one screen, that convenience, that's a powerful edge against the older brokers.
Okay, so this is where the charts come in, the technical picture after the IPO. We're looking at a stock that's still, finding its footing valuation-wise.
Yeah.
Past 3 months, the price has been kind of stuck between $17.50 and $21.90. Pretty tight range.
Yeah, that tight range post-IPO is actually kind of helpful. Gives us clear levels. The sources show technical support seems pretty solid between, say, $16.80 and $17.50. That's where the price churned right after the IPO. On the flip side, resistance looks just as firm, around $21.50 to $22.20. Getting through that upper level decisively, that'd be the signal for any real breakout.
The indicators seem bullish, matching that growth story. But post-IPO volatility, it's famous for trapping people. How much faith can we really put in, like a 50-day moving average, when the swings are this big?
That's the right skepticism to have. You definitely can't bet the farm long term based on a 50-day average on a brand new IPO. However, for shorter-term traders, the fact that the 50-day, which is around $18.80 now, is sloping upwards, well, it does suggest momentums with the bulls right now. It means people are buying the dips, basically.
Right.
And the RSI, the Relative Strength Index, it's around 56, kind of neutral, it would be slightly favorable. Suggests there's maybe room to run before it looks technically overheated. But yeah, volatility is high, way above average. It's a very active chart, no question.
And a big challenge right now. There's just no traditional Wall Street consensus, is there? The IPO was so recent. We've got hardly any analyst coverage, definitely no consensus price target. You can't just look up what the big institutions think here.
Exactly. It creates this vacuum where sentiment kind of takes over. And right now, the sentiment is being driven almost entirely by that growth story we talked about and the product rollouts. Social media seems generally positive, but you definitely see those concerns about valuation creeping in, especially when you put it next to those gap losses. It's probably keeping some institutional money on the sidelines for now.
All right, let's shift focus, look ahead. Weeble's been really aggressive lately. What have been the key positive moves these past few months, second half of 2025?
Oh, they've been busy, especially on the product front. August was kind of a double punch. You had the strong Q2 earnings report and the official relaunch of crypto trading for U.S. residents. And it wasn't a minor thing. They made it seamless right on the main platform, supports over 50 digital assets now. That integration is a big deal competitively.
Right, and then September. That was the big signal about their funding ambition.
Yeah, that was huge. They locked down a $1 billion standby equity purchase agreement, a SEPA, with Yorkville Advisors. Basically, think of it as a $1 billion capital war chest on standby. It lets them sell shares to Yorkville over time to fund expansion, global growth, whatever they need, without having to rush back to the public markets right away. That signals really serious, aggressive plans for grabbing market share.
Looking just ahead then, the main thing everyone's watching is the Q3 earnings release. That's scheduled for December 20th. Expectations are going to be high, but we might see some product news even before that.
Yeah, November could be really interesting. We're expecting announcements around two key things: launching a new stablecoin and starting up asset tokenization services. This isn't just about trading existing stuff anymore. This is moving into, next-gen financial products. Could open up totally new high-margin revenue streams for them.
And then there's the rumor mill, of course, always active. Some of these speculative drivers we've seen are pretty fascinating.
Yeah, three main ones floating around. First, there's this persistent buzz that Webull could be a major acquisition target in fintech, mostly because of that strong user base, the integrated platform. It's a valuable piece of tech.
Makes sense. What's the second one?
Second involves speeding up geographic expansion. Word is they're pushing hard to get those pan-EU crypto trading licenses. If they pull that off, boom, opens up a huge wealthy market outside the U.S.
Okay. And the third?
And finally, some analysts are speculating they might roll out proprietary AI-driven wealth management tools before the end of the year. Now, if they can actually use AI to automate portfolio advice and trading strategies, that shifts them from just being a cheap broker into that much stickier, high-value wealth management space. That would totally change the valuation story.
Okay, we've hit the growth, the hype, the potential upside. Now let's talk red flags, starting with the biggest one, regulatory risk.
Yeah, this is This is the potential time bomb here.
Yeah.
Webull operates in a space that's under intense scrutiny. Payment for order flow, or PFOF. That's the practice, of getting paid by market makers for sending them customer trades, is how many zero-commission brokers make their money.
And the SEC is looking very closely at it.
Very closely. Any rule change there that significantly restricts or bans PFOF, it could absolutely hammer their trading revenue. It's a core risk to the model.
And that risk gets layered with their expansion,
Yeah.
right? Different rules internationally, constantly changing crypto regulations.
Exactly. Then you have financial risk. We mentioned that high operating leverage. They're basically betting big that retail trading stays hot. If the market cools off or if PFOF revenue drops, that leverage could really magnify losses, turn that adjusted profit back into a big gap loss very fast. Plus, you still have that reliance on adjusted figures, not sustained JAP profit. That's always a vulnerability investors watch.
And we can't forget the governance risk we touched on. That concentrated insider ownership, around 26.6%. Yeah, it might stabilize things, but it definitely cuts down on liquidity. It means minority shareholders don't have much sway if leadership makes questionable calls on strategy or spending. Right. So pulling all of this analysis together, the growth, the tech, the catalysts, the risks, what's the final assessment?
Yeah.
Look, considering that undeniable YoY revenue growth and the sequential adjusted profitability they're highlighting, we'd rate Webull Corporation right now is a high-risk 6.5 out of 10. Okay, it's 6.5. That signals, real potential and strong execution so far, but definitely warrants extreme caution. So what's the core dilemma here for you, the listener?
The dilemma is really balancing that powerful growth story against some major unknowns. They have no long public track record. They face potentially existential regulatory risk, especially around PFOF, and they're still dealing with that classic post-IPO volatility. Our analysis really suggests the stock currently looks much better suited for short-term trading, playing the momentum, trading the news catalysts. It just seems like a high-risk proposition for a long-term investment until we see sustained gap profitability and much more clarity on the regulatory front, especially PFOF.
That distinction is so critical. Momentum trade versus long-term hold. You really need to understand that difference. And here's the final thought we want to leave you mulling over. Think about how Webull's really aggressive expansion, global crypto, backed by that billion-dollar SEPA. How might that collide head-on with the intense regulatory pressure on their core moneymaker, payment for order flow? How does that risk, that potential fundamental change to the sector, impact that powerful growth trajectory? That's the question for you to wrestle with as you evaluate this company.
In a sector moving this fast with this much growth and risk, critical analysis isn't just nice to have. It's absolutely essential. It helps you navigate what can feel like a minefield sometimes.
Absolutely right. Well, thank you for joining us for this look into Webull Corporation. Don't forget to like this segment, leave your comments, and definitely let us know which company you want us to break down next. We'll be back soon with more insights.